Hey guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another retro adventure. And at the end of another week, at the end of another poll, we've got a win for Crisis on Cloud City for Star Wars, which doesn't come as a surprise because everything was for Star Wars in the last poll. Now as usual, I'll cover that on the desktop in a wee second, and I'll be back at the end of the video with some other poll related stuff and some other channel related stuff. But before I do that, I'd like to take a moment to talk about my Patreons, who this week I have been advised calm every room that they walk into. And this I cannot disagree with, because they calm my life by helping support the channel. They make everything so much easier, and I really do appreciate every one of them. Now, if you'd like to join them, and you'd like to see these videos a week early, you'd like to help the channel out, you'd like to become a real honest-to-goodness fake laird of Scotland, or one of the other offers we've got, then there's a Patreon in the description down below. So check that out, it'd be very much appreciated. Anyway, let's have a look at Crisis on Cloud City. So, this is Crisis on Cloud City. It's for the Star Wars role-playing game. It came out from West End Games, and it came out in 1989, which puts it firmly in first edition Star Wars role-playing game territory. Although, basically any version of the D6 rules, whether you're using second edition, first edition, revised and expanded, they're all pretty similar, so you'll be able to use the adventure. Now, this is an adventure set during the Rebellion era. It's set a little bit before Empire Strikes Back, kind of documenting what Cloud City is like when Lando Calrissian just first takes it over. It's set very early in his control of the city, so quite a while before Luke, Han, and Leia turn up to ruin things for him. Now, it's kind of a sequel to the adventure Starfall, but only in the fact that it involves some of the same characters. Basically, it involves the heroes helping Walex Blissex, who is the man who designed the first Star Destroyers for the Old Republic during the Clone Wars, in the original version of the history, obviously long before the prequels were ever written, and his daughter Lyra Blissex, who designed the Imperial-class Star Destroyer for the Galactic Empire. Now, they are both lured to Cloud City because there's a new technology. Basically, two scientists have been working on a new type of droid. A droid which can be attached to any technological device and will not only control it with extreme accuracy, but will also redesign and improve it. In simulations that they've run, they show that if this droid had been controlling the Death Star during the Battle of Yavin, that it would have detected the attacks that the rebels were attempting on the exhaust port, and would have increased defences and sealed off the exhaust port, meaning that the Death Star would never have been destroyed. So, these two scientists, one however is looking for the support of the rebels, so has summoned Walex Blissex, who is accompanied by the players as his bodyguards and escorts, and the other has summoned Lyra Blissex, and they are planning a massive demonstration on how good it is, because he is going to, or he has done, plugged it into the control systems, the computer systems of Cloud City, and is asking it to redesign Cloud City as a large superweapon. However, unknown to the two, the droid has taken its programming quite uniquely, and it has decided that to complete its program, it's going to need a lot more workers. There's a lot more people on it, on Cloud City, than there are droids. So it begins upgrading the people, basically converting the people into droids, replacing their fleshy bits with mechanical bits. A kind of a nanite, basically. They're Borgifying them. And it will go about its process. It has already started on one of its creators. Anyway, I've kind of told you the basics of the adventure. Let's have a look at the back cover. Oh, first of all, high above the swirling gases of Bespin, desperate rebels struggle to unravel a mystery which could destroy the city in the clouds. Crisis on Cloud City by Christopher Kubasik. Chilling murder and intrigue abound as rebel agents become detectives to solve a deadly mystery on the floating metropolis of Cloud City. It started as a routine escort mission. Famed Alliance engineer Walex Blissex was contacted by an old friend who had made a startling scientific breakthrough. When the rebel escort team arrives on Cloud City to meet this mysterious scientist, things begin to go wrong. Dead wrong. Mystery leads to murder. Murder leads to deadly confrontations with killer droids and Imperial agents. And the rebels wind up entangled in webs of deception, deceit, and death. The fate of the city in the clouds and everyone aboard depends on the rebels and their ability to unravel the mystery before the knots pull tight. A 40-page booklet. It features an exciting adventure script with parts for each player designed to hurl them right into the action. An extensive pull-out section including maps of the famous city in the clouds and non-player character templates. Detailed information on the inner workings of Cloud City and its citizens. Extensive Game Master guidelines to help recreate the tone and feel of the Star Wars movies. Also includes a complete deck of sabacc cards and rules for the popular game played by Han Solo and Lando Calrissian, with standard rules which can be used in your tandem with Crisis on Cloud City, your own Star Wars campaign, or as a complete game by itself. 84 illustrated colour cards. A complete adventure for Star Wars role-playing game for Games Master and one or more players. Well, unfortunately, I bought this adventure second-hand, so the 40-page booklet, or the central booklet, and the cards are long since gone. I'm afraid the centre section is just page 18 to 23. The centre section's gone. Anyway, it still leaves the whole adventure there, even if we can't play sabacc, apart from just making the players make gambling rolls, for example. We don't actually have to play a fancy made-up card game. Now, the adventure itself, we get the introduction, which sets up the background on what the players are doing, but then gives you the background as to the history of the scientists, the droid that they've created, which is called EXO, the plan, so the bad guy, what his plan is, and then it's got recent events. So we're setting everything up. We're knowing what the scientists are doing, we're knowing what the heroes are doing, everything's pretty well explained. We've got a quick synopsis, and then we've got the main NPCs. Then we've got Arrival, so basically the section where the players arrive. However, when they arrive at the laboratory, where they're going to be finding out about this new development that the scientist has made, there's a dead man there. And the players will get framed for it. So basically they're starting their investigation and kind of going on the run, because Lando Calrissian, the administrator of the station, and his sidekick Lobot, who normally is slaved into all the computers, but the EXO computer, which has been connected to them, is blocking his detection of what's going on. But we've got Detailing and Welcoming Committee, Cloud City. They get ambushed. There's a security droid, waiting for them. And then there's the... No, what are you... Please. The man's pleas are suddenly broken by the snap of 3 blaster bolts, followed by a heavy silence. It says it introduces Lobot, who comes to investigate because there's been a death. And their investigations lead them on to a casino, because that's a lot of what goes on Cloud City. But it turns out that EXO has been the one that's lured them there, because they meet up with different people. Walex Blissex is there, obviously, with the players, and his daughter's there. Walex accuses his daughter of killing innocent scientists, and she's a bit confused by this. But it turns out that the artificial intelligence, the droid here, has lured everybody there to kill them. So they get attacked, and they have to defend themselves from droids. So they return to the science lab. Find out further programming. They discover the scientist, Dr. Vreen, who they were meeting, is being converted into a droid. Vreen looks at the datapad, his metallic face contorting with anger. Why do I need this? Soon my own brain will be able to process and store more data than this pathetic machine. What have I done? But they have to access the systems there to extract more data. Then they head out, a night in Port Town, where they are ambushed by more droids, because obviously the droid in charge of Cloud City is reprogramming all of the droids on board to serve it. Hence the security droid attacking them at the start. We've got the core quests. They're heading down into the computer core to stop EXO and all the people it's starting to convert. The sort of nanobots which convert people are evolution droids. They're evolving the people into new droids. And the adventure takes you down into a familiar location, the Carbon Freeze Chamber, where Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker face off, where they try and freeze Luke, and where Han, of course, gets frozen before. So it's taking us through familiar locations. And then we've got Crisis on Cloud City, which takes us right through to defeating Exo and reclaiming control of Cloud City and saving the day. It's not as good an adventure as Starfall. Starfall I thought was a fabulous adventure. I've run it a couple of times, I've played it a couple of times, and enjoyed it every single time. Starfall is where the players get captured and imprisoned on a Star Destroyer, which then get attacked by rebels. And they are aboard this Star Destroyer, which is on fire, going through a disaster, and they get out of their cells and have to escape from it. And the Imperial officer in charge is trying to track them down, and it leads to a wonderful confrontation in the hangar bays where he's in a scout walker and the players have to take it on. It leads to a great resumption. Now, while this is a bit more of a mystery where there's a lot more investigation going on, so far more chance for role-playing than just an action one, it doesn't feel quite as Star Wars. There's lots of iconic things here, but the idea of droids converting human or organics into droids does feel a bit more Borg, feels a bit more Star Trek to me. But it is a great adventure. There's a lot in here to use. You might need to rewrite some bits to make it make more sense to you. But there's a very strong framework to build on here. So that was Crisis on Cloud City, which won the poll this week with some 36% of the vote, which is only narrowly ahead of the second place, Other Space, on 27%, which is actually the one I thought would win the poll. And it led the poll early on in the week, but fell behind the eventual winner, which is lovely because they're both great early adventures. Behind that was Battle for the Golden Sun, which came in on 16%, Mission to Liana, which came in on 13%, and the ISIS Coordinates on only 8%. So they'll enter the polls at some point in the future again, and we'll see which win. I'll definitely put Other Space in again because it did so well. But as usual, they're all cleared out, and we're over to a retro RPG poll once again. And this time, I've tried to go with things which I don't think have been in polls before, but I didn't bother checking. If they have been in, then it's been a while, and I've kind of forgotten about them. So, first off, we've got the Stargazer's Tribe book for Werewolf the Apocalypse, detailing that particular more mystical one of the tribes of the werewolves. Then we've got the Rifts conversion book for Rifts. Now this details how to use other Palladium games within the worlds of Rifts, and because of the way Rifts is, where you can come in from other dimensions, it makes so much sense. So, an absolutely great book to use, because you can just bring in things from other Palladium games. Then we've got Secrets of Shadowrun for the Street Fighter RPG. Now, the times I've covered the Street Fighter RPG in the past have been extremely successful. People have loved hearing about this game because it did come and go, and it was such an oddity that it came out from White Wolf Studios, who were famous for their World of Darkness, and then they did a game about beating up people in the streets. So, I'd love to cover that. It's a great book detailing the evil organisation of M. Bison that's trying to take over the world, the villains of the game. And then we've got the US Army Vehicles Guide for Twilight 2000. Now this is first edition Twilight 2000, and basically it's an equipment book. It's all the vehicles of the US Army, detailing those out. Very, very useful, very, very well researched. Perhaps not vital for Games Masters to have, because do you really need 20 types of tank and 20 types of jeep? But an interesting book to look through nevertheless. And finally we've got Corrupting Influence for the Warhammer role-playing game. Now this came out from Hog's Head and is a compilation of the best articles of Warpstone magazine. So some really interesting stuff in there, and a glimpse at how Warhammer Roleplay First Edition was being supported back in the late 90s. Another channel related stuff, well, the Discord has been very, very quiet. Nobody's been chatting in there. I've got a couple of ideas of questions I'm going to ask and get people's feedback on, but as of before, if you want to get in touch with me, jump in there. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And over on DrivethruRPG, well, I'm adding my usual fantasy source books, and I've added the first source book for Tales of Fur and Steel. This one detailing some extra playable races, as well as lots of background information about the world of the small folk. And with that out of the way, I'm going to be moving on to a book on the magic of the small folk. I'm really enjoying writing these. I hope people are enjoying reading them. Especially my Patreons of Librarian and Laird Status, who get access to all these through a shared Google Drive. If you'd like access to them, then you can either look at the link to DrivethruRPG down below, or the link to the Patreon down below. I'd love to see you getting them through any source. I'd love to see this game out there. Now, over on rpggamer.org, continuing my support of the Star Wars role-playing, the first edition one, like the adventure we've just covered. But this week I have been mainly covering the new The Young Jedi Adventures. Now, I've reviewed the first episode. Now, this is targeted at a very young audience, so maybe matches my mentality, but it's perhaps a bit young for me to get the most out of it. But it's a fun little series, and I've been creating stats for all of the things out of that first episode. Wish there's a whole load. It's taken me the full week to get through just that one episode. And that will lead me probably up over the next 40 days until Ahsoka starts coming out, and I start dealing with that, reviewing and statting it out. But as usual, I think I've whittled on for quite long enough, so thank you very much for watching. But as always, most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.